so nervous. This is my first video, and why am I shaking? And I have, okay, I don't care. I'm thirsty. That I want to talk about. I want to talk about this book by Dworkin, Andrea Dworkin, Certain Pornography, Men Possessing Women. And I have like everyone else, I have a terrible attention span. I doom scroll, and I used to read when I was, I don't know, probably like 5 years ago, and then now my life has become very different, and I'm figuring out what I need to do. So I thought like I might as well just pick up a book. And I went to a bookstore here in Seattle, and I like pretty covers, and the title looked attractive, and I was like, I have heard the name, but I haven't really read anything written by Dworkin, but I know Dworkin is a radical feminist. I don't know how people do this. Like, I don't know how you have, like, because I made notes on my laptop, and I don't know, like, I was trying to Google it and try to ask ChatGPT, how do you, like, have your notes? Do people read it out? Do people just, like, have to talk about it? Or sometimes people have a teleprompter on the other side of the phone, or the side of the screen, but I was just, I'm very lazy. I'm very lazy. One thing that I would say about this book is that it was an intense reading experience. I wasn't prepared for that, especially with maybe like the book started with these graphic details on how women were used and exploited, and right from the time when pornography began, and then these are like explicit encounters and explicit details on violence and exploitation, and I think in the first chapter it was quite relevant to be able to prove a point and to be able to illustrate your argument on which is the central premise of this book, that how the misogyny runs so deep in our society. Kind of cruelty against a woman is not recognized as such, and Andrea Dworkin has devoted an entire chapter on how Said Marquez, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Sadeh Said, has escaped so many times while inflicting actual violence upon women, minors, his own wife even. But every time he just escaped from the hands of the law, the society, and also not only that, but has also been has been held in high regard and reverence by his colleagues, contemporaries, and his work has been, if you know him, like, you know that his work has been considered to be genius in eroticism, sensuality, and erotic literature. And there are recurrent themes on sexual liberation, sexual repression that are centered around how male system directs them through exertion of its power and aggression. And I'm going to use male system as a catch-all term for men, patriarchy, and the system, literally the system devised by the patriarchy, essentially the male system. And the way which something that I found interesting is how the male conceives of himself as a subject, and how like his own authenticity is dependent on others' objectification, if that makes sense. Like they're all, he can only relate to others by turning them into objects and by authenticating himself as a subject. And that's why it is him who's deciding if my object is repressed or liberated, and how will I know, how will I call her a repressed woman, or how will I call her an emancipated or liberated woman. So I found this interesting that you, for a man who's a self-proclaimed libertine, it is up to him to define who is an emancipated woman, and her emancipation is hinged upon the extent and willingness with which she will fulfill his sexual desires. So that also like made me think about how, I mean, it just like makes you think about like how what the desires that you have, um are they your own, or have you been subscribing to an idea of liberated women that actually benefits a man, and that is why you have certain desires. And so, but like in any way, there is no way through which a woman can escape being an instrument that serves a man's sensibilities, and it just doesn't look like that. So even if I'm like thinking if my desires are my own, then like it's gonna be a lifelong process, and I don't even know if I can ever escape being an instrument if I start thinking about everything that I desire so critically. And this also brings me to Dworkin's critique of objectification and treatment of women as objects. So, and objectification, like it's a topic in itself, and it warrants its own paper, its own video, which I want to get into. But it also, in objectification, I feel the one of the most important things is intention, and that can really direct the that directs what objectification is in that context, with the, I mean, in the sense that the intent in which it is used. So if you say like BDSM, or if certain person desires to be objectified, consents to be objectified. So yeah, so intention is important. And so this is why I want to pick up an example where she's citing Barthes and Roland Barthes, and is describing how Barthes, among others, also views the object's value in the same way, is to experience himself. So essentially, why do men need objects is to be able to experience themselves in relation to the object. In order to feel, in order to experience themselves, they need, in order to authenticate themselves, they need an object to relate to. Barthes, and tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, and I believe this is taken from his book, his text, A Lover's Discourse, and I read it a long time ago. I quite enjoyed reading it, and I felt like it was taken a bit out of context when she cited him, because for him, in that text particularly, the lover has been in such extreme agony over his beloved that the only way to navigate that pain is to consider only the desire as your own, and the beloved only as a tool. So this is not, this is a pervasive experience of falling in love, where if you distance yourself from the beloved and only look at your desire to love and only your desire for the beloved as your own, that this, what I'm feeling is mine, and the beloved, the object of your desire, is only a tool, and that's only to escape the pain, the misery of probably not being reciprocated in love or by the lover. Um, but I do agree. I mean, this is not to deny that there is brutal and violent objectification against a woman's will, and the male system or the patriarchy has built painful consequences of objectification. But like I said, the intent is important. So um, if I think back on my life experiences, there have been so many times. There was a time when I really liked being objectified, and I liked being considered as an object of desire by certain people. Of course, like in certain spaces, it allowed me to dissociate in a way where like my conscious self could switch off, and I could dissociate, and I could let myself experience in a way that is very different from what I experience, how I experience myself in my everyday life. I mean, I've moved past that. I don't enjoy it anymore, and I absolutely, actually, I don't like it anymore. And I obviously, even at that time, I did not like it out in the streets or in the spaces where it was intended to humiliate. It was intended to harm me. Um, I don't know. Can I say, was that a fetish, or what is? I don't even know. And so, fetish for Andrea is very limited in its capacity, that it can only be used, and it is only being used for penile erection. And so it cannot, meaning the fetishist cannot appreciate the object of fetish as the final reverence is his erection, which I'm not so sure of, because fetish for me is quite unexplainable, and it could be rooted in many things, including sexism, or even could be related to your childhood, your adolescence, and sometimes it just has no clear origins. It just is. It just exists, and a lot of the times the end goal is not orgasm. Like, it just really makes me want to talk to women and femmes about fetish, to understand it a little bit more holistically, because I feel like there's a lot of silence on women as a subject in the book, but I'll get to that in a bit. Fundamentally, the book is built on how pornography is essentially built upon the exploitation of women, and I think I can get on that bus. Like, I agree with that. And the male consumers, for the male consumer, women in pornographies are these carnal objects, like, who are in this perpetual in a state of moaning. They don't really exist outside of that moan, and this is the illusion that graphics have to give off, that yes, I am feeding your gaze, and that's all I do, that's all my job. And there are no subversions. It is the ultimate annihilation of the woman's will. And there is exploitation, the way it is made, the way it is consumed. It's violent, and then it brings me to this question: will I always be an instrument, no matter what? Will I have no agency under any circumstances? And this is why, which circles me back to my point about, like, there is a lot of silence on when a woman is the subject. Can she ever be a subject? And I don't know if Andrea has talked about it in other texts. Maybe she has, because this is the only book that I've read so far. The only book that I've read so far, of Andrea's, and Andrea Dworkin, and yeah, so where is her agency in expressing what she would want instead? And I'm assuming, where is her agency in expressing what she would want instead? And I'm assuming she doesn't believe, or Andrea doesn't believe that, or doesn't think that a woman is sexless and solely an object upon whom fantasies, desires, or violence is inflicted, and is never in the midst of conversations about sex. And I believe these are specific instances cited only, especially to bring patriarchy's violence to attention. Um, so yeah, I think if there's any other text that I should pick up to be able to understand that better, let me know. And another technical thing that bothered me was that there were multiple pages of just was little erotic pages of erotica taken out of the literature to be analyzed, and I was just like reading through that. Kind of made me feel a bit restless because my attention, like I said, it's all over the place. So I had to weed through a lot of those pages to get to the arguments. But I did read them, and it was an intense reading experience. I've Let me know if you've read it or if you have any thoughts on what I said. And thank you so much. I'm gonna cringe at myself, but I'm gonna say it. If you liked it, it's my first video. Give it, please like it, share it if you'd like, and subscribe to this channel.